So I bought or brought these. See my kitty from the roadside. I had these plants earlier. This is lantana camera with yellow and pink flowers. This is a turnera plant, and this one is Assistacia. I have one color, but this looked a little darker for me. Then this one has got this very tiny flowers that is called as Bohevia diffusa. It's an Ayurvedic drug. Then is this Ipomia. It has got buds here. I took a branch which has got flowers. Anyway, so I'm going to pot all these. This is a weed, Micania micrantha. This I'm not going to plant. This is there in my garden. It's a heavy weed which doesn't go off that easily. Oh yes, this is Gynandris, Cleome gynandris, again an Ayurvedic drug. It has got beautiful yellow flowers. So all these I am going to pot today. Roadside beauties. See my mama kitty. Gitu. She's trying to see if everything is okay. Is anything poisonous? So I'll go ahead and pot these. I had done some terrace cleaning and I got this. I can call it a mix of potting mix, sand, on the terrace, on the ground. That's why this terrace is now so clean. So this can be reused. Instead of throwing this, we can reuse it. It will form excellent potting mix. This Punarnava or Bohevia, it was growing on the roadside where it hardly gets any nutrition. It's a medicinal plant, but it was growing at the roadside where it hardly gets any nutrition. So this potting mix will mimic that type of potting mix which it got at the roadside. So this is the terrace, I can say discard, but actually not a discard. You don't need to discard. Only these algae, they need to be discarded because that will grow, and when we water, that will grow and it spreads horribly. So this is about half full. After using this, there will be lots of weeds which will be growing. We need to remove those weeds. We have to be a little vigilant. This is the algae which had grown on the floor of the terrace. That I am removing. because I don't want algae to grow back again. Now I'll place this Bohardvia. It's a huge plant. It will go into shock, but because it has roots, it will come back fast. Now I am covering the roots with the same potting mix. Otherwise all this would go waste. This I am throwing algae and a few things which are not useful for the plants. This is actually a 2.5 feet tub, and it became full within no time. When we water the plants through the drainage holes, the mud also escapes, and because it was on terrace, all the mud accumulated on the floor of the terrace. So, and the water, the mud level in the pots, it was going on reducing. Though I keep some things blocking the holes, drainage holes, still, from the drainage holes the potting mix escapes, and all that had collected on the floor of the terrace. So I collected all that. Why to waste, isn't it? It can be reused, recycled. As I said, only problem is the weeds that can be managed by being a little bit vigilant and removing all those weeds every now and then. So the discard potting mix is getting used again. So now this pot is full. This is the tomato plant which I have put in these grow bags. These grow bags also had the same type of mud or the waste from the terrace floor. You can see so many weeds have come here. From this I removed a few. See, so many weeds. All these if we remove, that becomes an excellent, very free draining potting mix. Tomatoes also require very free draining potting mix. So this serves that purpose. I'll water this and keep it in corner of my terrace where there will be shade, because this plant has to come out of the transplant shock. So I'll keep it in shade and then bring it to full sun. So this is a shade formed because of my Ashoka tree on the terrace. I have kept the pot under the shade of this Ashoka tree. I'll push it still inside. We have one more plant convalescing from repotting. This is Odontadenia. It has got beautiful orange flowers. This is again Pseudoranthemum caryophyllaceae. This is also recuperating from repotting. So this plant now is in full shade. Once it bounces back, I will put it in full sun. I had the Turnera subulata in this pot earlier, but somehow the plant had never thrived. There are so many weeds in this pot, and the potting mix is not the best. I'll have to add a bit of sand to it so that it becomes more well draining, because even this Turnera subulata, it was growing on the roadside, and we know on roadside there won't be much water available to the plants, and on the side of the road there will be cement, there will be stones, and among them this plant grows. So the potting mix should be well draining. In fact, it should be a dry type of potting mix. Now I'll take this to the terrace because the sand is kept on the terrace. I'll add sand and then plant these cuttings. In fact, it has come with roots. Next is this morning glory member. This looks like an Argyria species. Not very sure, the leaves. Anyway, I'll make cuttings out of this. These are very long, and the stem, it's a firm stem but not overgrown. So I'll take cuttings of this. So this is the node, and this will go into the soil, but there is an inflorescence and leaves here, so I am cutting it off because these will rot and the plant might get rot. So this is one whole plant or cutting. I am taking pieces of that. This may not survive, but I am taking chances. This is okayish. I am not cutting this. This length is good, but I will remove these leaves and flowers from here. This also needs to go. I am taking these approximately 6-inch pots. I have this garden soil, but this is really very horrible. It is very clayey. So this clay type of potting mix is not good for the plants. I will add sand. The pots are just 6 inches. So potting mix will not be required that much, but because these are cuttings, they should not rot, and in a mix with clay soil, the soil will retain lots of water and the cuttings will rot because of the water. So we have to prepare a soil which is free draining. So that is why I have used this sand. It should be a very sandy type of potting mix. So the soil which is there in this, that is enough for retaining moisture, and sand will drain off the moisture. Because the sand was wet, it had rained 2 days back. Because the sand was wet, this whole thing is wet, but this has got lots of sand in it. Because it is wet, I won't water this anymore. I am poking these argyria, so-called argyria cuttings in this. You can remove this also. I forgot to remove this, but I'll remove that. I won't keep it. At the base we can add honey, and that is this open end. We can add honey and cinnamon powder. Cinnamon powder is a very good antifungal, so we can add that. I didn't add anything. We can add that. So the nodes should get filled with the mud. So that's it for this morning glory member. Now comes the assistacia. This is for assistacia which I am preparing. It is quite sandy. Again, assistacia I brought from the roadside, so it requires well draining soil. Very sandy. Even this is wet. I won't water the cuttings. I am putting all the cuttings in one pot only. Later on, if needed, I will separate. I don't know which cutting will survive and which cutting will not make it. So that is why I am putting all the cuttings in one pot. They are very deep inside the pot, so it's a sure shot that the nodes will be covered. In fact, I think 2 nodes will be covered with the soil. I usually fill a few pots with such potting mix and keep, but in a few pots weeds have grown in that soil, so I couldn't use that. this is Cleome gynandra. I pulled it out with the root. And this is the Lantana camera. These are some pots, old pots. As I told you, I fill it with such a mix and keep. So I will put the gynandra plants which are there with the roots into this. They are there with the roots, so it will come out of the transplant shock. I'll have to water this. This is very dry. Just sprinkle water, not completely wet type of water. Now in this I will put this. Oh god, this is not covering the notes. I'll have to see for something else. I think I'll swap the pots. I'll remove this from this big pot. Big pot I will use for the cuttings. Yes, perfect. Lantana camera. Yes, this is good. And anyway, roots are there. I'll just see to it that the roots get covered. And anyway, the plant will, once it comes out of the shock, I will give it another pot. So all the plants which I brought from the wild are done.